On November 4th, 2002, Around the Horn debuted on ESPN, replacing Unscripted with Chris Connolly, and starting a 23-year-long run. About a year or so ago on this channel, I said that Around the Horn is perfect television, and I still stand by that. And I've been seeing some comments under posts saying that they're glad it's gone, and I'm going to chalk it up to people that don't understand the impact that this show had on a generation of people. The show premise was simple: get 4 working journalists from all around the country to talk about all kinds of sports and give their takes in an organized manner. However, this show had something that made it more unique at the time. This show had sort of a game show element to it, a competition for how right you were, as well as being called out for having a half-baked take or just being flat out wrong in general. Accountability. It's a simple idea for anyone to latch onto, but complex and versatile enough to have a 23-year run on a very pivotal ESPN show slot. You see, the 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern slot is very important to sports fans of all ages. You see, ESPN programming for a long time was always SportsCenter early in the morning over and over and over again, and they still do that. And the noon to 5 p.m. slots, there have been a revolving door of different shows that I could talk about endlessly on this channel. And 5 o'clock is known as the ESPN Happy Hour, and for adults, that's a show that comes on at the same time when most people are getting off of work. You can either go home or go to a sports bar, look up, and you're bound to see Around the Horn or Pardon the Interruption. And as a kid, it was awesome to come home and watch Around the Horn on TV, to catch up with what's been happening in the sports world. See, I didn't have cable until 9th grade, so it was a luxury that I did not take for granted. I wanted to make this video because I think that I have a unique point of view about this. I can talk about Around the Horn as someone that wanted to work in sports, as someone that does work in sports, someone that worked at ESPN for a little bit, and even someone who has had multiple former coworkers and friends be on the show as well. I look at it as one of the coolest jobs on television. So today I want to talk a little bit about Around the Horn and what it means to an entire generation and what it means to sports media and TV also. If you're new here, welcome in, and if you know me, welcome back. Thank you guys so much to everyone that's liked, commented, and subscribed. It has meant the world to me. And if you want to go a little bit further, feel free to support me on Patreon. There is a free tier on Patreon, and the paid tiers start at $1 a month. There are some different kind of things that go on over on Patreon. I just share some of my thoughts, some of my travels, some of my ideas. It's a fun time over here, and I hope that you join. There's about 750 plus of us already, and that's really cool. So I hope we keep building that community over there as well. Back to the video. What stands out to me on Around the Horn is balance. In a sports industry that has been steadily more and more about hot takes and this constant fight for attention nonstop, Around the Horn is a show where no episode really overstays its welcome, in my opinion. Just like in Pardon the Interruption, each segment and topic gets talked about for a short and condensed amount of time, and then we move on to the next topic. And this is something that I always appreciated. Not every TV show does this, but that's what makes this show so great. The balance between the host and the panel. You see, this is a show where the host moderator isn't just like a suggestion. The show gives the moderator the power to moderate the debate, the power to interrupt, to serve as the final say. Sometimes other sports shows have a moderator, but that moderator really doesn't get in the way of the people debating, kind of lets the debate run wild. The first moderator for the show was actually Max Kellerman, but he only did it for a short time. Eventually, Tony Reali came to replace Max Kellerman, and if you didn't know that Tony Reali was originally Stat Boy on ESPN's Pardon the Interruption, now you do. I will not let recipes be lost, okay? The moderator on this show has the ability to award points as a score when good takes are made, and this simple factor causes the panelists to really try if they want to really win the episode. And I'm serious about winning because this show is also an elimination show, and this show does track career wins. There's a scoreboard. It's awesome. Now a lot of people say that they don't know how the scoring works, but I do. In a 2003 episode that I was able to dig up, a good answer is worth 2 points, a great answer is worth 3 points, and if you give an answer not worth anything, then you get muted and minus 1 point. This is what the original scoring for Around the Horn was. Does Tony Reali follow this? Reality explained the scoring system in 2022, and he intentionally makes it unpredictable.
It's a show about real people and real life, so the scoring system should be like real life. Totally, purposefully unpredictable.
But he does it in such a way that makes sense and feels fair. And again, it's these simple things that give a show about sports so much character. In the beginning, the contestants were all sports journalists of some kind, in their field. And this was a remote show, except for wherever the host was in their headquarters, in DC, I think. And it was really awesome to see where everyone was working at the time. You had Woody Page at the Denver Post, you had Kevin Blackistone at the Dallas Morning News, and eventually the Washington Post. Bob Ryan with the Boston Globe. J.A. Adande with the Los Angeles Times. And over time, over the course of 23 years, a lot of these panelists have switched jobs, switched newspapers, and it's been really cool to track their career through this show as well. And I know these things might seem trivial in the overall grand scheme, but it means a lot to me when I heard that Bomani Jones was working in Raleigh, North Carolina when he made his Around the Horn debut. I know Raleigh is the capital and not a small city by any means, but it meant a lot to me at the time just knowing it was possible to live in Raleigh and still have access to a national sports platform. I don't know about you personally, but eventually you would go on and start to develop your favorite and least favorite personalities. Nothing malicious, but it was a way better day in my opinion when my favorite panelist not only was in the episode, but they won the episode. It's the kind of thing that kept the show fresh and engaging over the years. There have been so many distinguished and talented people to not only show up on the show, but make their mark and leave a lasting impression as a mainstay. And whenever you saw a new face, it wasn't an alarming thing, no. It just meant that they were currently on or up next on the network. It was awesome seeing Pablo Torre join the show in 2012 and see where he's gone now. The longevity of this show has been incredible to be a witness for. Of the handful of old episodes that I've seen, it's been awesome to go back and see all the panelists at earlier parts in their careers. Today you have a nice healthy mix of the legends being the legends that they are today, and then you have the young up-and-comers that grew up watching the show and are now a part of it. It's been 23 years, guys. Harry Lyles Jr. worded it way better than me when he used his FaceTime to talk about what Woody Page meant to him. And it damn near brought me to tears.
Whether you loved him or hated him, you always tuned into this show to see what that man was going to say. That also goes for those of you watching at home. I have to say, you still see Woody's influence all over sports media today in terms of the shows that you watch, the styles that people have, and it gave me a path to know where I wanted to be in my career. Being on this show is one of those things, and Woody Page, I would not be here without your influence, man. I appreciate you.
So Harry and I are both former co-workers at SB Nation. He's a friend of mine. He used to help me a lot when I was a disgruntled 22-year-old working at SB Nation in DC. And I will never forget the first time that I looked up on the TV and I saw Harry alongside other Around the Horn mainstays. I was just like, whoa, that's crazy. Like, that's a dream for a lot of people working in sports. So to see like the homie achieve that was unreal. It was awesome. That's so cool, man. That's so cool. And honestly, even though I've never appeared on Around the Horn, I wouldn't be where I am without Around the Horn. Let me explain. Had to bust out the home field Maryland gear. You see, when I was making my college decision, I didn't really know much besides ACC is good at basketball, so they must be good at college too. So I applied to most of the schools in the conference, and I was taking visits here and there, but I was very sure that I would run track at NC State. And then I visited Maryland. Maryland was my last choice because it was far away, and the track coach at the time didn't seem interested in having me on the team. I met a man named George Solomon, the then director of the sports journalism wing at the University of Maryland, and the father of Aaron Solomon, a longtime producer of Around the Horn. I didn't know that at the time, but we talked about it during the tour, and we also talked about how Kevin Blackistone was also a teacher there. That right there sold me on the University of Maryland. Being near DC also allowed me to be near an ESPN office and the SB Nation offices. And I didn't go to college thinking that this would be 100% the plan. I was still trying to be a play-by-play baseball person. But just the off chance that I would be able to talk to Kevin Blackistone was enough to make my choice. So I chose Maryland. I met Kevin Blackistone, who helped me get my first internship at USA Today. Now, during my time at Maryland, another coveted internship that I heard about was the Around the Horn internship. Now, the process for that is extensive, if I remember correctly. I remember being ecstatic just about getting to the second round of interviews for that one in the second year that I applied for the internship. But I think that just screams to how inspiring the show as a whole was to an entire generation of aspiring sports journalists. Nick Wright called it the most important sports show ever, and I don't think that he's wrong on that. This show took the panel-style interactivity of the sports reporters while not taking itself too seriously, making for a fun time. My favorite part of the show actually comes from the behind-the-scenes aspects, showing the humanity and the absolute joy that everyone has making that show. It reminds me of the time that I got lucky enough to shadow an episode when I was in college. This is one of the most important shows in terms of how I make my videos, how I approach topics and content, and it taught a wave of sports journalists and content creators that you don't have to take everything in sports seriously. And for that, I'll always thank them. As for what replaces this show, I'm not sure what's next. I don't work there, but that 5 o'clock slot is too valuable to just throw stuff at the wall. But I do know one thing, that whatever is next, they have some huge shoes to fill. Thank you guys for watching all the way to the end of the video. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Feel free to support on Patreon as well. I will see you in the next video. If you have anything that you want me to cover, feel free to comment it as well. I might get to it. I might not. Small operation over here. Anyway, have a good one, y'all. Bye!